are too important to delay it even another day because of minor changes to the legislation. I would urge my colleagues to vote against my good friend Maria Cantwell's amendment and move the bill forward. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
The Senator from Utah.
Madam President, I rise to express my continued support for the American Invents Act. We've been working on patent reform legislation for several years now. In fact, almost the whole time I've been in the Senate. So it is satisfying to see the Senate again voting on this bipartisan bill. It is important to note that this bill before us is the same one that was passed by the Republican-controlled House of Representatives in June. I commend House Judiciary Chairman Lamar Smith for his leadership on this monumental legislation. He has really worked hard on this for many years, and I really want to pay personal tribute to him. I also want to recognize the efforts of my colleague from Vermont, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Patrick Leahy. Over the years, he and I have worked tirelessly to bring about long overdue reform to our nation's patent system, and I personally appreciate Pat for his work on this matter. I also want to recognize the efforts of Senate Judiciary Committee Ranking Member Chuck Grassley of Iowa, as well as many other Senate colleagues who have been instrumental in this legislative process. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land and the shortest operating constitution in the world. America's founders put only the most essential provisions in it, listing the most essential rights of individuals and the most essential powers that the federal government should have. What do you think made it onto that short list? Raising and supporting the Army and maintaining a Navy? No question there. Coining money? That one is no surprise. But guess what else made the list? Here's the language. The founders granted to Congress the power, quote, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries, unquote. In other words, the governance of patents and copyrights is one of the essential, specifically enumerated powers given to the federal government at our nation's founding. In my view, it is also one of the most visionary, forward-looking provisions in the entire U.S. Constitution. Thomas Jefferson understood that giving people an exclusive right to profit from their inventions would give them, quote, encouragement to pursue ideas which may produce utility, unquote. Yet Jefferson also recognized the importance of striking a balance when it came to granting patents, a difficult task. He said, quote, I know well the difficulty of drawing a line between the things which are worth to the public, the embarrassment of an exclusive patent, and those which are not, unquote. As both the inventor and statesman, he understood that granting a person an exclusive right to profit from their invention was not a decision that should be taken lightly. This bill is not perfect, but I am pleased with the deliberative process that led to its development. And I am confident that Congress followed Jefferson's lead in striking a balanced approach to patent reform. There can be no doubt that patent reform is necessary and it's long overdue. Every state in the country has a vested interest in an updated patent system. When patents are developed commercially, they create jobs, both for the company marketing products and for their suppliers, distributors, and retailers. One single deployed patent affects most all sectors of our economy. Utahns have long understood this relationship. Ours is a rich and diverse inventive legacy. In the early 1900s, a young teenager approached his teacher after class with a sketch he had been working on. It was a drawing inspired by the rows of dirt in a potato field the teenager had recently plowed. After examining the sketch, the teacher told the young student that he should pursue his idea, and he did. That teenager was Philo Farnsworth, a Utah native who went on to patent the first all-electric television. Farnsworth had to fight for many years in court to secure the exclusive rights to his patent, but he continued to invent, developing and patenting hundreds of other inventions along the way. Another Utah native developed a way to amplify sound after he had trouble hearing in the Mormon Tabernacle. His headphones were later ordered by the Navy for use during World War I. His name was Nathaniel Baldwin. William Clayton, an early Mormon pioneer, grew tired of manually counting and calculating how far his wagon company had traveled each day. So in the middle of a journey across the plains, he and others designed and built a roadometer a device that turns screws and gears at a set rate based on the rotation of the wagon wheel. It worked based on the same principles that power modern odometers. John Browning, the son of a pioneer, revolutionized the firearm, securing his inventions through a patent, and is known all over the world for the work that he did. Robert Jarvik, who worked at the University of Utah, a wonderful doctor who I know personally, invented the first successful permanent artificial heart while at the University of Utah. These and countless other stories illustrate the type of ingenuity that was required by the men and women who founded Utah, the type of ingenuity that has been exemplified in every generation since. Last year, Utah was recognized as one of the most inventive states in the Union. Such a distinction did not surprise me, especially since the University of Utah recently logged the university's 5,000th invention disclosure and has over 4,000 patent applications filed to date. This impressive accomplishment follows on the heels of news that the University of Utah overtook MIT in 2009 to become America's #1 research institution for creating startup companies based on university technology. A group of students at Brigham Young University recently designed a circuit that was launched with the shuttle Endeavour, and another group developed a prosthetic leg that cost $25 versus the $10,000 a prosthetic leg may typically cost. Utah inventors contribute to everything from electronic communications to biotechnology to computer games. Like my fellow Utahns, citizens across the country recognize that technological development is integral to the well-being of our economy and the prosperity of our families and communities. And as technology advances, it is necessary at times to make adjustments that will ensure Congress is promoting the healthy progress of science and useful arts. The America Invents Act will improve the patent process, giving inventors in Utah and across the country greater incentives to innovate. Strengthening of our patent system will not only help us lead out of these tough times, will help lead us out of these tough economic times, but it will help us maintain our competitive edge both domestically and abroad. Take, for example, the transition to a first inventor to file system and the establishment of a post-grant review process or procedure. These changes alone will decrease litigation costs so that small companies and individuals will not be dissuaded from protecting their patent rights by companies with greater resources. The bill provides the USPTO with rulemaking authority to set or adjust its own fees for 7 years without requiring a statutory change every time an adjustment is needed. Providing the USPTO with the ability to adjust its own fees will give the agency greater flexibility and control, which in the long run will benefit inventors and businesses. The legislation enables patent holders to request a supplemental examination of a patent if new information arises after the initial examination. By establishing this new process, the USPTO would be asked to consider, reconsider, or correct information believed to be relevant to the patent. Further, this provision does not limit the USPTO's authority to investigate misconduct or to sanction bad actors. I am confident that this new provision will remove the uncertainty and confusion that defines current patent litigation, and I believe it will enhance patent quality. The America Invents Act creates a mechanism for third parties to submit relevant information during the patent examination process. This provision will provide the USPTO with better information about the technology and claimed invention by leveraging the knowledge of the public. This will also help the agency increase the efficiency of examination and the quality of patents. This bill would create a reserve fund for user fees that exceed the amount appropriated to the USPTO. I prefer the language in the Senate-passed bill, which created a new revolving fund for the USPTO separate from annual appropriations. Certainty is important for future planning, but the appropriations process is far from reliable. While conceptually I understand why our House counterparts revised the Senate-passed language, and I am in agreement about maintaining congressional oversight, I believe this is one area that should be reconsidered. It's just that important. That is why I support Senator Tom Coburn's amendment. If passed, his amendment will preserve congressional oversight and give the USPTO the necessary flexibility to operate during these critical times. The House-passed compromise language is a step in the right direction, especially since the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee has committed that all fees collected by the USPTO in excess of its annual appropriated level will be available to the USPTO. However, I remain concerned that the budget uncertainties that exist today may negatively impact the USPTO and its ability to implement many of the new responsibilities required by the America Invents Act. I remain concerned about some provisions that the House either expanded or added. On balance, however, the positives of this legislation far outweigh the negatives, and I am confident that it will contribute to the greater innovation and productivity that our economy demands. It provides essential improvements to our patent system, such as changes to the best mode disclosure requirement, expansion of the prior user rights defense to affiliates with an exemption for university-owned patents, incentives for government laboratories to commercialize inventions, restrictions on false marketing claims, removal of restrictions on the residency of Federal Circuit judges, clarification of tax strategy patents, providing assistance to small businesses through a patent ombudsman program, and establishing additional USPTO satellite offices. Madam President, we all know that every piece of legislation has its shortcomings. That is the reality of our legislative process. However, taken as a whole, the America Invents Act further builds upon our country's rich heritage of intellectual property protections, a cornerstone provided by Article I, Section 8 of the Constitution. Passage of the America Invents Act will update our patent system, help strengthen our economy, and provide a springboard for further improvements to our intellectual property laws. I urge all of my colleagues to join in this monumental undertaking, Madam President, and I appreciate those who have worked so hard and long on these programs. Again, I mention with particularity the Congressman from Texas, Lamar Smith, and also my friend and colleague, Senator Leahy, and others as well, Senator Grassley especially. And there are others as well that I should mention, but I'll leave it at that for this particular time. Madam President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Dispense with.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today to speak on a matter of great importance to our country, and that's jobs in our economy. I know the President will be speaking this evening, and I want to emphasize the importance that we focus on a long-term strategy to get our economy going. By that I mean a pro-jobs, pro-growth economic strategy for our country. The things that go into that include building the best possible business climate, the kind of business climate that will stimulate private investment, that will stimulate entrepreneurship, ingenuity, that will stimulate job creation by businesses small and large across our economy. We need to build a strong business climate. We need a long-term pro-growth economic strategy to do that. We also need to control our spending and live within our means, and we need a comprehensive energy policy. All three of these things go into the right kind of long-term comprehensive approach that this country needs to get our economy growing and get people back to work. I'd like to start by taking just a minute to look at our current situation, to talk about where we are. If you look at unemployment, unemployment is more than 9%, and it's been more than 9% for an extended period of time. Weekly jobless claims, more than 400,000. We have more than 14 million people who are out of work. And that doesn't include people who are underemployed or people who are no longer working, no longer looking for work because they've been discouraged and aren't included in the workforce. 14 million people that we need to get back to work. We also have a tremendous deficit problem. If you look at our revenue today, we have revenues of about $2.2 trillion. We are spending at a rate of $3.7 trillion. That's $1.5 trillion deficit. And that's adding up to a more than $14 trillion debt. $14 trillion debt that weighs on our economy. And if we don't deal with it, there's a debt that our children will have to pay. That's not acceptable for us, and we have to deal with it at the same time that we get this economy going. If you look at our current situation, we're borrowing 40 cents of every dollar that we spend, and that our debt, our deficit, our debt is growing at $4 billion a day. I brought some graphs so that we can look at it graphically. Here you see revenues and spending. Unfortunately, the spending line is the red line along the top here. Spending of more than $3.7 trillion a year. At the same time, our revenues, $2.2 trillion. That gap, $1.5 trillion budget deficit that we are accumulating on an annual basis, and as I say, is now leading to a debt that's more than $14 trillion. If you look at this next chart, we talk about unemployment. Here you see annual unemployment. Currently, we're at 9.1%. We've been there for an extended period of time. Again, that represents more than 14 million people that are unemployed, that we need to get back to work. Now, the other thing you'll notice on this chart is the blue line. This blue line is the chart for my home state. There you'll see our unemployment is about 3.2 to 3.3%. For the last decade in our state, we have focused on a pro-growth, pro-jobs economic strategy. By that I mean building the best possible business climate, making sure that we live within our means, and building a comprehensive energy approach to develop all of our energy resources. And there's no reason that we can't do the same thing at the federal level. In fact, we need to do exactly that at the federal level. And so I'm here today to talk about some of the things that we need to do to make that happen. And the first is that I emphasize by building a good business climate, I mean legal, tax, and regulatory certainty. Legal, tax, and regulatory certainty so that businesses know the rules of the road, so that they can invest. They can invest shareholders' dollars, so that entrepreneurs can start new businesses, so that existing businesses can expand. But to do that, they need to know the rules of the road. They need to know what our tax policy is. And right now we have a tax policy that expires at the end of the next year. So how do you, as a business person, go out there and start making investments when you don't know what the tax policy is going to be beyond the end of next year? We need tax reform. How about regulation? We have incredible regulatory burden. How do you go out there and make an investment, get a business going, hire people if you don't know what the regulatory requirements are? We need to reduce that regulatory burden. We need to pass trade agreements so that our companies can sell not just here in the United States, but they can sell globally. And if you look at the history of our country, that is how we've grown this economy, how we've become the most dynamic economic engine in the world. It's through that private investment, that entrepreneurship, that American ingenuity. And the role of government is to create a business climate that unleashes that potential. We have got to roll back the regulatory burden. We have got to create clear, understandable rules and tax policy to follow so that these companies can make these investments, get those 14+ million people back to work, get a growing economy at the same time that we get a grip on our spending, start living within our means. That's how we not only raise our standard of living and our quality of life, but we make sure that we don't pass on a huge debt to our children and our grandchildren. So let me talk about some of the kinds of laws and legislation that we need to pass to make sure that happens. Not too long ago, President Obama issued an executive order, and I hope it's something that he talks about this evening in his address to the joint session of Congress. In that executive order, he said all of the agencies, all of the federal agencies need to look at their regulations, at their existing regulations and any regulations that they're putting out, and make sure that if those regulations are costly, burdensome, if they don't make sense, if they're outmoded or outdated, that they're eliminated, that they're stripped away, so that we empower people and companies throughout this great country to do business. So he said, make sure that, executive order, make sure all of our agencies look at their regulations and eliminate those that don't make sense, that are costly and that are burdensome, so that we can stimulate economic activity and job creation in this country. I think we need to do exactly that. In fact, let's make it a law. Let's make it the law that all of the regulatory agencies need to look at their existing regulation and any regulations they're looking at putting out to make darn sure that they're clear, straightforward, understandable, that they're workable. And not only that our regulations are clear and understandable, that the regulators work with Americans and American companies to make sure that they understand them and that they're able to meet them so that they can pursue their business plans, their business growth, their business investment, and that they hire and put people back to work. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to work. So together with Senator Pat Roberts of Kansas, myself and others have put forward the Regulatory Responsibility for Our Economy Act. And that's just what it says. Now, how much more bipartisan can we get than that? The President puts out an executive order saying we need to roll back some of this regulation that's burdening our business base. Then we as Republican senators say, okay, here's an act to put that executive order into law. Let's work together in a bipartisan way to reduce this regulatory burden that is stifling economic growth and job creation in our country. That's what Congress is supposed to do. That's what we need to do. That's what the people of this country want us to do on a bipartisan basis. And so when the President comes to the Capitol this evening and talks about how we get business going, let's get business going by reducing this regulatory burden so that that private investment can get people back to work in this country. It's not about more government spending. It's about private investment and private initiative. We have to create the framework to make it happen. And we can do it, and we can do it on a bipartisan basis. Another example, the United States has been the leader in aviation throughout its history. Throughout the history of aviation since Kitty Hawk, the United States has led the world in aviation, in invention, in development, and innovation and all the things that have gone into the development of aviation throughout its history, the United States has been a leader. One of the key areas for growth in aviation right now is UAS, unmanned aerial systems, unmanned aircraft. Now they call them RPAs, remotely piloted aircraft. Our military uses them to tremendous benefit in Iraq, Afghanistan, around the world. But even though our military flies UAS, unmanned aerial systems, all over the globe, we can't fly them here in the United States together with manned aircraft. But yet, if we're going to continue to lead the world in aviation innovation, we have got to find a way to fly both manned and unmanned aircraft together in our airspace here in the United States. So myself and others have been talking to the FAA and working with the Federal Aviation Administration saying, hey, you have got to promulgate rules, set the rules of the road, or in this case, the rules of the air, so that we can fly both manned and unmanned aircraft together in the United States airspace. And the FAA has been working on this for I don't know how long, but a long period of time, and as of yet, they've not come out with those rules of the road so that we can fly both manned and unmanned aircraft in our airspace. But we need to, because if we don't, other countries will, and they will move ahead of us. Maybe not in military aviation where we're flying unmanned aircraft all over the world, but how about in commercial and general aviation and all the other applications that we'll have for unmanned aircraft. So in the FAA bill, which we're now working to complete, a version has passed the House, a version has passed the Senate. We're trying to reconcile the two versions and get it passed. Again, we need to do this. We need to do it in a bipartisan way. I've included language that authorizes and, in fact, requires that the FAA set up airspace in the United States so that manned and unmanned aircraft can be flown concurrently. Again, it's about making sure we not only maintain our lead in aviation, but creating those exciting, good-paying jobs of the future. And if the agency isn't going to take that step, then we as Congress have to make sure that we take that step and move the aviation industry forward. Another example of how we've got to create the environment, the forum that encourages that type of innovation, entrepreneurship, investment, and job creation. That is our role. That is our responsibility in this most important of all issues, which is getting our economy going and getting people back to work. One other area I'll touch on is the free trade agreements. We have 3 pending free trade agreements. One's with South Korea, the U.S.-South Korea Free Trade Agreement. Another one's Panama. Another one's Colombia. Those trade agreements have been negotiated for some time. For 3 years, those trade agreements have been pending. It's time we take them from pending to passed. We need the administration to bring those free trade agreements to the Senate and to the House, and we will pass them. We have worked across the aisle in a bipartisan way to make sure that whatever issues needed to be dealt with to bring those free trade agreements to the Congress have been dealt with. Whether it's Trade Adjustment Authority, whatever it is, we have worked together in a bipartisan way to say, look, we have addressed the issues. Now the administration needs to bring the free trade agreements to the Senate floor, and we will pass them. Just one of those free trade agreements, for example, if we take the South Korea, U.S.-South Korea Free Trade Agreement, we're talking more than $10 billion in trade every year. $10 billion in trade for our United States companies. These free trade agreements reduce tariffs on the order of 85%. We're talking more than 250,000 jobs that will be created if we pass these agreements. For every 4% increase in trade, we're talking 1 million American jobs that we can create. Again, it's about creating the environment that empowers investment, that empowers our entrepreneurs across this great country, that empowers businesses, large and small, to invest and to get our economy going. At the same time that we get this economy going and growing, we've got to start living within our means. Right now, as I just indicated, we have a $1.5 trillion deficit and a debt that's closing in on $14.5 trillion. So at the same time we get this economy growing, which will grow our revenues, not higher taxes, growing revenues from a growing economy, with tax reform that empowers that economic growth. At the same time, we've got to get control of our spending and live within our means. Along with my fellow senators, I've sponsored a number of pieces of legislation that, again, I believe we can pass in a bipartisan way to make sure that we get our spending under control. The first is a balanced budget amendment. I come from a state, I was a governor for 10 years. We have a balanced budget amendment. Every single year we are required by our Constitution to balance the budget. States have a balanced budget requirements. Businesses, families, communities, all have to live within their means. Our federal government has to live within its means. And if you think about it, a balanced budget amendment gets everybody involved. We not only have to pass it here in the Senate and over in the House with a two-thirds majority, but then it goes out to the states for ratification. What better way to get everybody throughout the whole country directly involved in making sure that we control our spending? Because every state has to deal with the balanced budget amendment. So it's all of us working together as Americans. It's the Congress going to the people of this great country and saying, here's a balanced budget amendment. You tell us what you think. Again, what a great way to get everybody involved, the way we should get everybody involved in making sure that we live within our means, not only today, but tomorrow and throughout future generations. At the same time, we need to pass other tools that can help us get control of our spending. For example, the Reduce Unnecessary Spending Act. This is absolutely a bipartisan act. This is an act that I think was originally sponsored by Senator Tom Carper, a former governor, Democrat from Delaware, and Senator John McCain. And I'm proud to be a co-sponsor on the bill. One of the key things that this legislation does, it gives the President a line-item veto. So again, here reaching across the aisle as a Republican, reaching out and giving our President a tool, a line-item veto, to make sure that we cut out waste, fraud, and abuse, that we control our spending. As a governor, the most effective tool that I had was the line-item veto. And we need to make sure that our President has it as well. And I think we also need to look at a biennial budget. A biennial budget so that we pass a budget on a two-year cycle. We make sure we get that budget passed, and then the next year we come back, we make the adjustments that we have to make, but at the same time we have time for oversight, making sure that the spending is going in accordance with the directives of Congress, and that where there is waste, where there is fraud, where there is abuse, where there is duplication, that we cut it out. Again, it is absolutely what the American people want us to do. And the third area I'm going to touch on for just a minute, and I'll go to my next chart, is building the right kind of energy plan, a comprehensive energy policy that will help this country develop all of its energy resources. We did it in my home state of North Dakota. I know that we can do it at the federal level. And if you think about it, energy development in this country is an incredible opportunity. It's an opportunity to produce more energy, more cost-effectively, with better environmental stewardship that will enable all of our industries, because they all need energy, to compete in a global high-tech economy. But in addition to that, what a great opportunity to create high-paying jobs. But again, I go back to what I said before. For our energy companies that are looking to invest hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, they need to know the rules of the road. It comes back to creating a comprehensive energy policy that sets those rules of the road so they know what their tax situation is. They know what the regulation and the regulatory requirements are, because when they make those investments, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to produce more energy more cost-effectively with the latest, greatest technology that will help us produce that energy with good environmental stewardship, they have to know that they're going to be able to get a return. They have to know that they can meet the regulatory requirements and that those investments may last 40 and 50 years. And they know that they're going to have to be able to recoup those investments. This first chart just gives you an example of some of the energy development in our state. Out west, oil and gas. North Dakota is now the fourth largest oil-producing state in the country. We've passed up states like Oklahoma and Louisiana, and people don't realize it. And they go, oh, well, that's great. You have energy. Every state has some kind of energy. If you look at this map, we have oil and gas, we have coal, we have wind. We're in the top 10 wind producers. We have biofuels, ethanol, biodiesel, biomass, solar. We have all of them. And different states have different strengths. And a lot of states have oil and gas or coal or certainly wind, or they can develop the biofuels. Okay, but it comes down to creating that environment that stimulates the private investment so companies will come in and do just exactly what I'm talking about, at the federal level as well as at the state level. This next chart shows what's actually happening, though, at the federal level. This chart is the cost of major new regulations. What it shows over the last 3 decades is the cost of regulation by year over the last 30 years. When the cost of regulation is high, if you go back and check, you'll see our economy wasn't doing very well. And when the cost of regulation was low, you'll see that it was doing much better. Look at the cost of regulation today. $26.5 billion in 2010, the cost of meeting the regulatory requirements. That's what I'm talking about. That's what's impeding job growth. That's what is impeding economic growth and business investment. And we've got to address it. We've got to roll back the regulatory burden that our companies and our entrepreneurs in this great country face. This last chart gives you just one example of some of the new regulations that EPA is putting out that somebody that wants to develop energy has to meet. Now, you're an energy company, or you're a young person with a good idea to develop a new type of energy or an existing type of energy with a new technology. Can you meet all those requirements? Can you even begin to understand them? Do you have a big enough legal team and scientific team? Do you have a deep enough well to go try to figure all of that out before you put your monies at risk or your shareholders' money at risk? That's what's impeding economic growth in our country, and we've got to deal with it. And Congress has to deal with it. Again, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. And it's not about spending more federal dollars. We have to create the environment that will encourage, that will stimulate, that will empower private investment. And it is that private investment throughout this land that will get our economy going and will get people back to work. And we can do it. And it has to be a long-term strategy. It can't be a few stopgap measures that we put in place now for the next 90 days or for 1 year at a time. It's got to be on a long-term, sustained basis. I believe that's what people want to hear this evening. I think they want to hear that kind of commitment to a long-term strategy, a pro-growth, pro-jobs economic strategy that will get this economy going now, tomorrow, and for the long term. And it has to be done in a bipartisan way. To get it through this Congress, signed by the President, it does have to be bipartisan. But it's that kind of vision that we need for our country. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the time, and I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, as you know, job creation in this country has come to a halt. The Labor Department reported last Friday that 0 jobs were created in August. The economic recovery that was hoped for failed to materialize. Unemployment remains at 9.1%. Hope is not enough. Our economy is stagnant. The President's latest pivot to jobs is anchored on blaming the previous administration, which is now nearly 3 years past. Yet despite repeated assurances of improvement, President Obama's own economic policies have failed. The President's stimulus plan failed to produce the 3.5 million jobs that he promised. His Green Jobs initiative gave us more red ink, but never came close to the 5 million new jobs that he predicted that it would. All the while, federal bureaucracy he controls churns out expansive and expensive new regulations that amount to an assault on private sector job creation. The facts really are inescapable. Since President Obama took office, America has lost approximately 2.3 million jobs. We are in an economic crisis, a crisis that extends to America's confidence in the President to do anything that will change the current course. What the American people want is a plan that will yield results. They want leadership, and they have rejected the President's insistence that the only way forward is through more spending. Today, Western members of the Senate and House are calling on the President to accept a new way, a pro-growth plan to create jobs in the West that will lead to broader economic recovery all across the country. The Western Caucus Jobs Frontier report was produced by members of the Senate and House Western Caucuses. It contains legislative proposals already introduced in both houses of Congress, and these are proposals that create jobs now. The proposals we support speak largely to the economic challenges faced by Western states. They are also aimed at ruinous regulations and reliance on foreign energy and lawsuit abuse that continues to stifle our entire economy. These bills are ready to pass. They are ready to create jobs today. Any serious job creation proposal has to start with serious steps to increase affordable American energy. For decades, Westerners have worked in high-paying energy jobs, and these jobs have good benefits. Since taking office, the Obama administration has consistently pushed extreme policies and heavy-handed regulations that make it harder to develop American energy. Very simply, fewer energy projects mean fewer American jobs. Members of the Senate and Congressional Western Caucuses have proposed a wide range of legislation to increase the number of red, white, and blue energy jobs all across the country. Encouraging the development of an all-of-the-above energy resources will create thousands of jobs in the West and make our country less dependent on foreign energy. This administration has consistently shut down offshore energy exploration. It's arbitrarily canceled existing leases. It continues to try and impose additional hurdles to onshore production, such as redundant environmental reviews, burdensome permitting review requirements, and delays in processing of applications. Our bills, the ones in this report, will streamline the permitting process and break down the barriers imposed by President Obama. This will make it cheaper and easier for the private sector to create jobs. Westerners recognize that we can't pick and choose which forms of energy to support. When it comes to energy, we need it all, and we need it now. That's why we need a bill that will let energy producers tap existing resources of American oil and natural gas. Our plan is a bill that will do that. It's called Domestic Jobs, Domestic Energy, and Deficit Reduction. It's been introduced by both Representative Rob Bishop of Utah and David Vitter of Louisiana. This bill would force the Interior Department to stop blocking offshore energy exploration. That department's stall tactics have gone so far that even President Bill Clinton has called them ridiculous. The Domestic Jobs, Domestic Energy, and Deficit Reduction Act would reduce the Obama administration and force the Obama administration to quit stalling. The barrage of new regulations coming out of Washington continues to be a big, wet blanket thrown over the job creators in our country. In July of 2011, this administration issued 229 rules, and it finalized 379 additional rules that are going to cost our job creators over $9.5 billion. That's in July alone. Our plan includes a bill that I have introduced called the Employment Impact Act. This bill forces Washington's regulators to look before they leap when it comes to regulations that could hurt American jobs. Under this bill that I've introduced, every regulatory agency would be required to prepare a jobs impact statement. They'd have to do it with every new rule that they propose. That statement would include a detailed assessment of the jobs that would be lost or gained or sent overseas by any given rule. It would consider whether new rules would have a bad impact on our job market in general. You know, the administration has also attempted to drastically increase wilderness areas, to expand Washington's jurisdiction on private waters, and to misuse the Endangered Species Act. Well, Mr. President, Western lawmakers are proposing to reassert congressional authority to ensure a proper balance between job creation and conservation. Our bills in this report will increase transparency and stop any administration from issuing regulations without considering the local economic impact. Throughout our nation's history, Mr. President, American farmers and ranchers have provided an affordable, abundant, and safe domestic supply of food and energy. Well, in recent years, America's agriculture and forestry industries have been increasingly threatened by the surge of regulations coming from Washington, especially those from the Environmental Protection Agency. Our plan is going to push back. We will strengthen these industries and their ability to meet the world's growing food and energy needs. Westerners also recognize the mining sector is vital to our economic recovery. We know that the manufacturing jobs cannot be created without the raw materials needed to produce those goods. Well, since the Obama administration won't break down barriers to American minerals, our nation is growing increasingly dependent on foreign minerals, countries like China and Russia. This inaction is unacceptable, and it is inexcusable. Our plan includes Senator Murkowski's bill, the Critical Minerals Policy Act. That will ensure that the long-term viability of American mineral production will be there. Her bill will require the U.S. Geological Survey to establish a list of minerals critical to the U.S. economy, and then provide a comprehensive set of policies to address each economic sector that relies upon those critical minerals. It also creates a high-level interagency working group to optimize the efficiency of permitting in order to facilitate increased exploration and production of domestic critical minerals. These are just some of the ideas, Mr. President, included in our Jobs Frontier plan. As it says, breaking down Washington's barriers to America's red, white, and blue jobs. We eliminate backdoor cap and tax regulations. And finally, we will take on excessive lawsuits against federal agencies that have increased dramatically and destroyed jobs in the West. Every single one of the bills, Mr. President, in the Republican jobs plan has been written and introduced in one or both houses of Congress. This is a plan that can be implemented now. This is a plan that will work to create jobs, and this is a plan that will reduce the cost of energy and restart the economy. Mr. President, there's a lot that needs to be done to fix our ailing economy. These are some ideas, Western ideas that come from the lawmakers that know best how our rural communities are suffering and how we can get folks back to work. Many of these proposals come from the states. They have the support of our Western governors and legislators. These are ideas not born in Washington. Recent jobless numbers confirm that the current approach from Washington has failed. If the President is serious about incorporating the ideas of every American in every part of the country, then he needs to look beyond Washington. I want to thank every member of the Senate and Congressional Western Caucuses for their work and their expertise on this report. I look forward to turning these ideas into policies and that way putting all of America back to work. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.